Good afternoon. My name's Darren Long. I teach ICT and computing, and I'm responsible for whole school IT in Gowerton School in Swansea. What I'm going to do is give you a bit of an insight as to where we've come from with regards to Google Apps and where we're going with Chromebooks. So, we've been using Google Apps since pretty much the beginning. Google Apps wasn't originally a full collaborative suite. Google Apps, when back in 2005 it was initially released, it was just a mail service, and we migrated our email system over to Google Apps because essentially we had an Exchange server. I was responsible for that. It was coming to the end of life, and I didn't want to spend any more money, and I didn't want to spend any more time supporting that. So we migrated our system over to mail. And then in the following years, Google introduced further apps to that suite, such as Google Docs, or Drive as it is now, Sites, Blogger, and everything else. So we've really been there from the beginning, and our next step really is integrating Chromebooks within the classroom. One of the particularly good things about Google Apps, I find, is that we can introduce different services for different requirements. So for example, we've been particularly successful in engaging the community using Google Apps by using Blogger. Now, I was fortunate enough to go on the school Southern Hemisphere to Hong Kong and Australia last year, and when the tour was announced, you know, everybody's names were announced teaching-wise, or staff-wise, and when everybody was announced, you know, it was quite obvious that the rugby coach would go, the hockey coach, the netball coach, and everything else. And then my name came up as IT support for the tour, and it was quite strange, and I think a few people were baffled. But my responsibility, whilst we were away, was to record all the rugby, hockey, and netball matches in HD, record them, upload them back to YouTube then, and get our tour manager to blog about the daily activities online. And at the time, I didn't think it was that important, but when we looked at the analytics about how many people were actually hitting that blog whilst we were away, it really was a huge part of the tour. And it's just another offering that Google provide as part of the Google Apps suite, and it's one thing we've been particularly successful with. Back in our recent inspection report, Eston described us as being sector leading for our use of Google Apps, and from then we've also had recognition from BETT for the quality mark and the Excellence Awards, where we highly commended. So really, that's where we've been over the last sort of 9 years. We've been there from the beginning. I think Google Apps initially, back in 2005, was a lot more difficult to migrate to than it is now. It was a case of we just switched our service over and upgraded or migrated our user accounts using CSV files. But now there are so many different options of migrating your actual data and the emails and everything else from servers that you have at the moment. Things are a lot more straightforward and a lot easier to deploy than they were back in 2005. So from my perspective, not just the teaching perspective, I look after whole school IT as well. One of the things that I find a huge benefit is the fact that Google Apps is obviously cloud-based, but the configuration of Chromebooks for Edu are also cloud-based. So in previous years, we'd have to configure, you know, we used Windows Laptop for a number of years, and what we did was have to remote into our servers and configure these devices, and it took a significant amount of time to get those things going. Now, obviously, with Google Apps being a cloud-based product, we can configure everything we need from any web browser wherever you are in the world. So I can configure Chromebooks and test devices at home and just deploy them the following day in school. So that's obviously a huge benefit to me, looking after the technical side of things. And it ties in nicely with the whole cloud offering that Google supports. Now, the way we have configured Google Chromebooks, there are probably infinite numbers of ways in which you can implement them in your schools, but this is the way I've found most effective in our school. Our school has around 1,200 pupils on roll at the moment, and within one classroom, there could be around 200 pupils coming in and out of that classroom within a day by the time you factor in registration and lunchtime activities. So it's very difficult to keep a number of devices and save work to those devices fluently for the kids to be able to manage their workflow. But with Google Apps and Chromebooks, everything is stored within the cloud. So it doesn't matter which pupil comes into the classroom, they open the Chromebook, and everything is available to them. It doesn't matter which Chromebook they use. Again, it's just all in the cloud. So we've opted for public sessions, and this is something that Google introduced probably 12 to 18 months ago, where initially when the pupil comes into the classroom, they open the device, press the button, it automatically logs on to the Chromebook. There's no setup or adding a user account. It's just immediate, and we're talking sort of 10 seconds. Now, previously we had Windows laptops, and it could take minutes to apply settings from the server, to manage profiles, to download software updates. And in the end, I think with us, it was a bit of a failure, really, using 30 laptop computers within the classroom, because there was so much focus on using the computer, people forgot about the learning experience because they were such high maintenance. So they automatically log in, and the session lasts for 60 minutes. Now, a timetable in our school means that one lesson is 60 minutes, so the assumption is that people will come in, open the laptop or Chromebook, and that public session will last 60 minutes, and if it's idle for 45, that may be right or wrong, if I'm honest with you. Only time will tell, because it's early days with us. The device will log out. We've also configured them to automatically erase the device after every public session is logged out. So there's no device in the school, or no Chromebook, that actually uses any local data. The device is sort of like a dumb terminal where everything is hosted and used in the cloud. So really, the pupils' experience of it is something that's really slick, something they're used to because they've been using Google Apps for years, and it really is low maintenance from the technical side of things as well. We've also set, there's two other things. We've set the policy refresh rate, so anything we've configured here will take up to 3 hours to populate to the actual Chromebooks. Again, time will tell whether or not that is right or wrong. It's early days for us. One of the things I am conscious of, though, is bandwidth consumption. So we have set the automatic updates of the Chromebooks. So obviously Google Chrome tends to be updated very frequently. So we're on version 32 or 33, whatever it is now. We've set that to automatically scatter over our devices over 14 days, because we don't want users to pick up the Chromebook and find out the Wi-Fi bandwidth is being consumed by those updates. So I think we've got it right on the 14-day thing. With regards to the policy refresh, I'm not quite sure, but it's early days. Some of the other things you can configure and push out to your Chromebooks, we currently have around 70 at the moment, is you can configure which SSID your Chromebooks connect to. So our Chromebooks connect to the school guest network, but there's no configuration on the user end. So when the Chromebook is opened, it'll automatically connect to that SSID. It'll automatically set our proxy, which is configured with our LEA. And it will set the homepage to our main school website. Some of the other things we can use, I'm particularly insistent on enforcing safe search amongst all the Chromebooks for obvious reasons. There's a white and black list available to you. So we use within our LEA, we have an internet filtering setup. But if you don't have that available and you did want to install perhaps another Wi-Fi feed to your school, you could just work on a whitelist sort of setup. Obviously, it might be difficult in a secondary school, but in a primary school with a limited number of pupils, it might be a very cost-effective way to get access to a certain number of websites. And that is all done via the cloud and via the configuration console. One of the things that's been a bugbear of mine for years with Google Chrome initially, I'm not sure if it's there now, to be honest, but it didn't used to have the home button up the top left of the screen, and pupils were so used to pressing the home button to take them back to the main school website. That's something you can configure and push out to Chromebooks through the web-based management console. So the experience, that's the configuration side of things. With regards to the experience for the pupils, there's no login to the device. It takes 10 seconds from the moment it's opened and the button is pressed to a Chrome browser being available to them to get onto the internet and do what they need to do. It's cleared at the end of logoff, so there's no need to worry about which Chromebook did I use last time. And it is geared towards Google Apps in particular, but you can use other cloud services as well. So you don't particularly have to migrate everything you have to Google Apps just to be able to use a Chromebook. You could use other cloud services. As long as it works with Google Chrome, it will be supported with a Chromebook. There are a number of manufacturers available at the moment, and we used the initial Samsung products which were released, and we paid around $199, I believe. So the cost of the products is, I think, it's at the right price point. When the Chromebooks were initially released, they were comparable with a desktop computer. Now, people would argue, well, why are you going to buy something that does less for the same sort of price? But I think for £199, inclusive, the pricing might be out now, but when we bought them, they were $199. It's inclusive of the management console as well. I think that's about £15 or £18. It is worth paying for the management console fee, because you could go into a high street shop and take one of these off the shelf, but it wouldn't tie in with your Google Apps domain. So it is worth going through a Google Apps retailer and making sure you've got those things tied up. This is how it looks to the pupil when they open the device and switch it on. The background, I think, is pushed out by Google. You know, I'm not too bothered about the background, if I'm honest with you. But you can see on the bottom right, it is a public session. And this one has been logged in for around 6 minutes. So we know after 54 minutes, the device is going to be logged off and cleared. It's pretty straightforward. It's simple. They don't need to do anything, really. The Chrome web browser will pop up as well. So it really is quick access to the services they need. One of the things you can see down the bottom right is we've automatically connected to our guest network, and Bluetooth has been disabled. That's a decision we've made as a school. Again, there are infinite numbers of ways, I imagine, that your school or LEA can deploy Chromebooks, but that's something we've just gone down the route of. So, for me, maintaining laptops were extremely high maintenance. The amount of time pupils would take in getting the machine connected to the guest network, or waiting for updates, or waiting for their policies or profile, it was high maintenance, and I think, you know, we're not going to spend any more money in deploying laptops in our school. We are going to go down the Chromebook route, mainly because of these things. They are zero maintenance. Since we've deployed Chromebooks in our school, we're looking at about 70 at the moment, but we are looking to invest more and more as years go on. We've had no complaints about the Chromebooks. They're just immediate, they're fast, the hardware is good. There's no local storage, really. You know, there's no hard drives. We don't have to worry about the traditional, you know, reinstalling the operating system. We've had none of that with our 70 Chromebooks. Obviously, you do have to be conscious that you have to have an adequate Wi-Fi setup. Now, that is difficult in a number of schools at the moment, but again, if you use the blacklist and whitelist, you could put in a third-party line, but I'm not recommending you do that. It work with your schools and LEAs. They're inexpensive. They cost £199, or that's what we paid anyway. That's about half of what we are paying for desktop computers. And it's not just the initial cost of the product. We've got to look at total cost of ownership as well, because the amount of time spent supporting those devices is obviously reduced. And one of the other things people don't always take into consideration is the fact that you lose a teaching room. Like, we have 1,200 pupils on site at the moment, and we have a limited number of teaching rooms. So if somebody said to me, I'd like 3 new network suites, we'd have to install around 90 computers. Now, obviously, they cost about £400 or £500 each. Plus, we would have to factor in costs of desks, furnitures, electrical cabling, network switching gear, cabling for the network as well. You know, it's not just the cost, the initial cost of the computer. It's all the sort of other things that go around it. And with a Chromebook, you could pick up 30 Chromebooks with a charging trolley for around £7,000. So if you factor in the cost, plus obviously you don't have to lose a teaching room. So if you factor in all those things, I think that, you know, Chromebooks is a real winner. We're going to use them throughout our school over the next few years. And I think the number of PCs and desktops that we use across the curriculum will certainly drop, and the number of Chromebooks we use will certainly be on the up. Again, they're flexible because you can just wheel them between departments. That's pretty much where we are at the moment. It's early days with regards to Chromebooks. We've been there since the beginning with Google Apps. So thank you for listening. If anyone's around and would like a chat, please do so. Thank you.